people-backed candidacy. They see this people-backed candidacy as overthrowing the elite capture within the Democratic Party, because God forbid Zohran is successful. God forbid other openly socialist candidates are successful elsewhere. Then all of a sudden, all of their lobbyist funds and all of their corporate capture will dry up. This is why it's extra important to consistently get people on board no matter what. You think so? I mean, yeah, 26 billionaires have poured over $22 million into stopping Zohran Mamdani's campaign for New York City mayor. Bloomberg, Ackman, Walton, Wynn, Lauder. The list reads like a billionaire panic roll call. They're not donating out of civic duty. They're defending a system that's finally being challenged. So this is perhaps one of the most consequential moments where every single person, instead of like putting the crosshairs on their viable allies, should suck it up and try to fight back. Because this is not a given. It's not a given. It's not over. And it won't be over even when Zohran wins. Okay? And yeah, here are some scary numbers to look at if you want to light the fire under your ass. Cuomo has cut Mamdani's lead to 10 points. Suffolk poll of New York City voters. Now, it's not the best poll. I believe it's like 500 people. But Suffolk poll of New York City voters, 1023 to 1026. September poll in parentheses. Before this is before the Eric Adams endorsement, show Mamdani going from 44 to 45, but Cuomo going from 34 to 25. Wait, what? Or sorry. 45 to 44, dipping in 1 point. And Cuomo going from 25 to 34. Sliwa going from 9 to 11. Okay. Sliwa's second choice shows 36% at Cuomo and Mamdani at 2%. Now, the thing is, from what I understand, I've been reading a little bit about what Adam Carlson has been talking about as a pollster. They are, one of the biggest problems with polling in general is that they're too reliant on previous voter patterns in order to develop projections, right? And even when they're actually adjusting for who goes out to vote. Now, when they do that, it's very difficult for them to put together an adequate sampling size or adequate weight on certain groups. One of the most famous examples of this is the Muslim vote in New York City. The Muslim vote in New York City has been historically underpolled because they've been historically underrepresented. And the suspicion is that a big part of the reason why the polls underestimated Zohran's success in the primaries was because they had not weighed the mobilization from Muslim communities within New York. Even with the limited amount of organizational tools that they had, even though it was a crazy door-knocking operation, the limited amount of name recognition that this candidacy had, as opposed to right now. So what Adam Carlson says about this poll is basically Cuomo picked up on most of Adams' previous 8% support in the Suffolk September poll, and undecideds inched down. But the closest margin, Mamdani plus 10 of any publicly released poll since August. If we look at the rest of the polls, Mamdani up 18, AARP showing Mamdani up 14, Fox showing Mamdani up 24, Quinnipiac showing Mamdani up 14, Suffolk showing Mamdani up 20, CBS showing Mamdani up 15, Marist showing Mamdani up 21, and Emerson showing Mamdani up 15. So we shall see. And New York Times has an aggregate of all the polls as well. Caroline Solar, polling researcher at the New York Times, says as early voting begins and 1 week remaining until Election Day, Zohran Mamdani, Democratic candidate, maintains a double-digit lead over Andrew Cuomo. A new Suffolk University poll shows Mamdani ahead 44% to 34%, with Curtis Sliwa, the Republican candidate, at 11%. That's down from a 20-point Mamdani lead in Suffolk's September survey. The tightening follows Eric Adams' decision to drop out and endorse Cuomo, who has tried in recent weeks to consolidate opposition to Mamdani by courting more conservative-leaning voters. Sliwa has refused calls to exit the race, and Mamdani has held a steady lead in October polls, even clearing 50% in the Beacon Research poll earlier this month. This is why they so aggressively tried. This is why they bought Eric Adams and made Eric Adams endorse Andrew Cuomo. And this is why they were so aggressively trying to get Curtis Sliwa to drop out. And the reason why they were trying to so aggressively get Curtis Sliwa to drop out is because, once again, it is literally hitting you in the face. Even modest social democracy is a life or death style threat for all of the capital owners and even establishment Democrats as well. How can you look at the situation where it's very clear that victory is within the crosshairs for someone who wants to move the needle in the left position by very little, that all of these people are screaming from the fucking rooftops about what a danger this presents. And they are trying to channel all of that frustration. They are trying to do everything in their power to disparage this person by any means necessary. And there are still people who are like, nah, this is actually 100% a captured. This is a person who's trying to sedate the masses and make them comfortable with the Democratic Party so that, American workers are still invested in the bourgeois Democratic Party and will never actually have revolutionary feelings in their hearts. Why do we care as a Mamdani, given that he's going to win? It's the biggest upset for a non-Democrat to lose a New York City election. I'm trying to explain that there is still a threat. Hassan is talking about the threat he is to power and how the entire bourgeois political class is aligned against him. Yes. Posted and deleted weeks after John Oliver's takedown of Barry Weiss, Ryan Gold, FB's author of the shoddy article questioning the cause of emancipated Gazan children, attempts to parody last week tonight. She's definitely not mad. Do not write that she's mad. Oh, God. We'll look at this later. Okay. That's so silly. These are the polls of the New York City mayoral primary, including simulated ranked choice voters for the first and final rounds of voting. So just remember, there was only one poll that showed Mamdani up +5, and every other poll showed Cuomo with varying degrees of different leads. So all of them were wrong, but that doesn't mean that these polls are now weighing Mamdani's chances as much higher than before, because they do adjust quickly. Right? Pollsters will oftentimes very quickly restructure how they are weighing certain demographics. Michael Lange says, my thoughts on the first 2 days of early voting: fear-mongering, Cuomo bump in wealthy Manhattan. Black and Hispanic turnout is low. Solid but unspectacular GOP turnout. Commie corridor starts slow, finishes strong. Brownstone, BK, huge numbers for Z. More age-related thoughts. Voters 55 plus are 51% of the electorate. Voters aged 25 to 34 are now 16% of the electorate. Plenty of older voters are Republicans. Sliwa's best demo is 65 plus whites. Gen X and boomers are ahead, but Cuomo needs more. Age data means little without districts. Emil Habibi, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Do you think Zohran would be cooked if Sliwa dropped a long time ago? I wouldn't say he'd be cooked, but he would have a much tougher go at it, I think. Because once again, this is what happened to Bernie as well in the primary. But this time they failed in the primary because they underestimated Zohran. But now they're doing it in the general. You have to understand, like, the struggle will continue even after the electoral victory, because the same interests that actively are trying to stop this before the election takes place are not going to just sit quietly and idly and wait for ZOHRAN to become a successful mayor. They will rat fuck him every step of the fucking way. They are going to undermine him. Because these people have no investment in the betterment of people's material conditions. They are playing a game of domination. They want to make sure that you do not have hope. They want to cut this before it becomes a larger problem. The bigger the win for ZOHRAN, the more Democrats are likely to fall in line. If this is closer than expected, it's not good for ZOHRAN's term. We need a massive turnout. We need to get it over the 50% mark, make it a blowout. Exactly. I think shows of strength, such as last night's events, is very good. Because then the Democratic Party's elite see the momentum and the mobilization, the capabilities that a left flank candidate has. It makes it impossible to deny. It makes it unavoidable. It makes it a reality. Okay? We can't leave this stuff up to luck. Clearly, when, let's really be honest, Mamdani wins the election and takes office, Trump will immediately send in federal agents and the National Guard to ostensibly combat crime/immigration and spend every day trying to provoke New Yorkers into unrest. This is in addition to the billions of federal money he's already pledged to cut off. And I believe their threats of deporting Mamdani are very real and should be taken seriously. Cuomo and his donors constantly make not-so-veiled threats premised on these dynamics. What would be useful is if our media explained this motivation and strategy of tension while reporting on this inevitable crackdown and provocation, rather than running with Trump's completely nominal aim of fighting crime or legal immigration. This will not likely happen, of course. One recent template is Trump's bogus claims to be taken on narco-terrorists and drug cartels while he attempts to provoke Venezuela into a regime change war. A drugs framing everyone from the New York Times to the Atlantic accepts and runs with, despite its obvious fakery. It's bullshit. It's transparent bullshit. And yet, for some weird reason, well, not so weird reason, we know what the actual reason is, there is this normalization. Iraq 2.0, one could say. But in any case, this is a 34. Oh, this is just the ZOHRAN speech from the rally.
Class, who's
and this is the AOC speech as well. AOC directly challenges Trump in fiery speech in Queens. All right. Fox's TikTok comment section is pro ZOHRAN.
As we stand on the precipice of taking this city back from corrupt politicians and the billionaires that fund them, let our words ring out so loud tonight that Andrew Cuomo can hear them in his $8,000 a month apartment. Let them ring so loud so that he can hear us even if he's in Westchester this evening. Let them ring so loud that his puppet master in the White House hears us. New York is not for sale. And now, as we stand...
So that was posted on the Fox News TikTok. Now let's look at the comments on Fox News TikTok. Fox posting this like it's supposed to make me stop liking him. Can we change the rules so we can run for president, please? I'm so jealous of New York right now. Fox posting is the rage bait Cuomo. Free New York from AIPAC. Look at the people behind him. All Muslims. We are in trouble. The name is Mamdani. His decency brought back enthusiasm to the election. One comment that's negative and weirdly suspecting that the Sikh people behind him are Muslim, you know, racialized Islamophobia as always. And then the rest are like, can he be president, please? Zohran's team also came out with a Fox News ad, and I think that's pretty brilliant. My radical, in air quotes, agenda. Let's take a look at that.
He is a communist.
Hey, I'm the actual Zohran Mamdani, not the guy they talk about on this channel. My radical agenda? Turn the page on the billionaire-backed politics of Andrew Cuomo. Make the city affordable, tackle government waste, keep New York safe, and deliver on our promises. With universal childcare, rent that you can afford, and a property tax system that actually makes sense. So don't be fooled by the noise. This is who I am, and you're who I'm fighting for.
Paid for by Zohran for NYC.
He also has a decent amount of money as well. And I think that when you pair up good policies and you can bankroll said good policies with a broad media campaign, something that Kamala Harris failed to do because she did not have the good policies. She did have the fat purse, right? I think you can overcome these odds. Don't get false optimism laws. TikTok, I always see liberal comments, even on Fox. I know. I'm just pointing to the fact that Fox News' message is supposed to resonate with Fox News TikTok watchers. There's plenty of right-wingers on TikTok. Squirrel made a decent comment on Islamophobia. I suspect that they're saying the same thing that I've been saying, which is that Israel defenders and Israel in general realize that they can't actually win people back to loving Israel. But what they can do is disparage Muslims. They can really tweak the dial on Islamophobia and therefore make people fearful of Muslims and then make it seem as though, you know, Israel is fighting against Muslims. Like, I don't really like Israel, but I guess they're fighting Muslims and I hate Muslims. That's it. Elon Musk has recently turned on the Zionism dial on the algorithm to the max for his daddy Netanyahu. This post was immediately targeted by Zionist Israeli boss and troll farms, and they've been posting the same script nonstop since. It's instructive to look at what they all say. Two main repeating lines, aside from the typical classic Hasbro bullshit about how Palestinians are intrinsically violent and subhuman, is the obsessive focus on immigration and Muslims. That's the new strategy. We're going to do a war on terror 2.0 Hasbro operation in the U.S. and West and just ramp up the most insane, deranged, Islamophobic, racist bile imaginable. That will make them forget about our genocidal mass slaughter and rape of Palestinian babies, toddlers, children, girls, boys, and women. Creating huge, vast, fake AI-run accounts that mimic real people, preferably women and minorities, so we can pretend we have deep organic support among broad swaths of the population, and then give them all the same script to repeat everywhere on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and of course TikTok that they now directly own. OMG, Muslim Islamic invasion. OMG, Muslims. OMG, invasion by Browns. The jihadi Browns Muslims are invading you. Oh my God. Oh my God. There has never been more disgusting, depraved, shameless creature than the genocidal Zionist. Former U.S. envoy to combat anti-Semitism, Eli Kohanim, says, never forget, early voting begins today. Vote Andrew Cuomo and save our city. I mean, this is insane, right? Anyone flippantly posting images like this for clout is a fucking ghoul. Everyone I know lost someone that day. I still have nightmares about what I saw. Nearly 50,000 first responders and others now suffer from 9/11 linked cancers. Our pain isn't your cannon fodder. Because only Zohran Mamdani has the right to evoke 9/11. You know, his aunt got mean looks on the subway. What's ghoulish is the people who would vote for a guy who campaigns with the unindicted World Trade Center co-conspirator anywhere near City Hall who seem to have forgotten 9/11. Like, this is such a psychotic reaction to a guy who has nothing to do with 9/11, obviously, duh, but happens to be Muslim. He was an 8-year-old Muslim boy in New York when 9/11 happened. He too also suffered the trauma, as many New Yorkers did. It's insane that they would turn around and make it seem as though he is responsible for 9/11 or will do another 9/11. Boomers still want to hold on to 9/11 like Gen Z and the younger generation don't give a fuck about it at all. It happened 24 years ago. It's like them wanting us to cry over the Titanic. Yeah, but that's besides the point because boomers still are a viable voting bloc. I'm shocked. I was really waiting on that coveted New York Post editorial endorsement for ZOHRAN. Shocked, I tell you. Also, another one of my favorite things that Andrew Cuomo and everybody else does is when Andrew Cuomo will literally turn around and in the same breath be like, why are we talking about ZOHRAN made his campaign on Gaza? And then this is what he does like a day after. Okay. One day he's like, ZOHRAN is campaigning about a foreign country. I don't understand why he's doing this. And then the next day he's at like the Israel rally in front of the Israeli flag being like, I'm going to be the mayor for Israel. I'm going to be the best mayor for Israel. That's why I'm running. He's not trying to win anymore. He's just trying to do as much damage as possible before he loses. I know. I see that.
Anti-Semitism.
Mayor of New York should not be your first job. We don't want an apprentice mayor. There is no on-the-job training for mayor. God forbid there's a...
Been reading the collection of Ho Chi Minh's writings from Verso books recently. In his earlier writings, he discusses working with the traders amongst the French colonists explicitly. But as the national liberation movement develops, he shifts his approach away from this method. It's not a moral shift either. He's constantly reiterating that tactics depend only on current conditions. Yes. That is precisely right. The only reason why you read former theorists and former successful and sometimes unsuccessful initiatives to develop socialism is to learn from those lessons and then take those lessons and adopt them to your current circumstances, your current material realities. That is, in my opinion, the best possible way to move forward. All the while, you exhaust all options. And it comes across as silly when people go, dude, I cannot believe you're like people were getting mad at me because I was bringing up Lenin while talking about not even necessarily like voting for Graham Plattner, because I wasn't even endorsing Graham Plattner, but in general, like making a broader point about exhausting the parliamentary structure or whatever the current structure is, right? Which in our country is a duopoly, unfortunately. Like exhausting all options in the effort, exhausting all options in the direction of fomenting revolutionary sentiment amongst the masses. But in an effort to do so, you have to be where the masses are. And as far as it stands, at the heart of empire in the United States of America, the place where the Cold War was fought and won against socialism, the masses are liberal. They're self-described as liberal. So they have no real viable mechanism for change whatsoever. They just want to chirp, and that's fine. The masses are liberal. Then how did Trump get elected, lol? Do you think that the Republican Party in the United States of America is not also liberal, at least a base of support? They are. A lot of you are operating with the American understanding of the term liberalism. I'm using the political theory of liberalism. The masses are liberal. That's precisely the reason why we have a center-right liberal party known as the Democratic Party, and we have a far-right reactionary party that is also liberal, but now moving in a post-liberal fascist direction known as the Republican Party. It is funny when people say, this is me out of my element, when this is my element. Even if there was a time where restructuring will shake things up so dramatically that there is even a necessity for a Marxist-Leninist vanguard or whatever that might look like when the time comes, what people don't understand is that that is not going to magically materialize. It is up to you to ensure that a left flank alternative growing within the Democratic Party is not a mechanism of sedation, but instead a mechanism of revolution. If you give up on these options, if you give up on these options that are readily available and say, it's not perfect, I have a different opinion, you will never be able to make the changes. But it's okay, because I think only time will show. Only time will show if it's successful or not. And I think many of you who have this cynicism will either realize that this was an appropriate measure in that moment in time, in this moment in time, and get on board, or you'll just continue pushing the left flank of the Democratic Party is how we get the revolution. No, that's not even what I'm saying. That's not even what I'm saying. I don't think the Democratic Party is going to become a working class party. I don't think it's going to become a workers' party. It has always been a bourgeois party. Okay? But the Democratic Party within our current duopoly is the most viable method of spreading the word. Okay? Because I am of the mindset that if the third party alternative was there already, we would have at least some semblance of a mass movement. But in the United States of America, as it stands, we do not.
Crisis. There's a flood, a terrorist attack, God forbid. You need a mayor who knows and has the experience and has the ability, and that is not Zohran Mamdani, who's never worked a real job in his life.
Cuomo also says he will hire additional police officers and provide new opportunities for businesses to operate in New York if he is elected. And Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa also in Queens today, speaking at a Sikh temple in South Richmond Hill. Sliwa spoke of how it was the Sikh community that taught him the importance of volunteering.
And I have learned from the Sikh community that you have to provide selfless service to the community, not just to members of your own religion, but to all poor and indigent people. I'm on the subways every day. I'm the only candidate to ride the subway.
Sliwa continues to emphasize public safety, saying he and the Guardian Angels used to help Sikh cab drivers in the 80s who were being attacked and robbed. Now, Fox 5 is covering every angle of the upcoming election.
Using Infantile to prove a point about Platter or engaging with the Democratic Party isn't even the right piece to be making. The point is honestly better made by Kautsky's work or what is to be done by Lenin. Infantile was only in regards to Panakek rejecting parliamentary participation and even the formation of a workers' party in favor of communism via council. Yes, it was a more aggressive approach, but I think a lot of people who don't fancy themselves to be left-coms do actually reflect left-com style politics. Like the notion that one day out of nowhere that there is going to be a magical death to capitalism due to its inevitable, due to its contradictions it should not stop you from playing your part and ensuring that there is at least a base for this alternative restructuring to take place when the time comes. And in order to get there, you have to use every available opportunity, every available method.
You can watch Politics Unusual Fridays at 6:30 with our Morgan Mackay and Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote, hosted by S.
Yeah, I'm not an idealist. I'm a materialist. All right, let's continue. 164,000 people voted over the weekend as the poll sites open for day 3 of early voting. Let's take a look. And yes, he is still hammering the 9/11 shit. Campaigning in Harlem, Andrew Cuomo continues to slam Zohran Mamdani over 9/11 rhetoric. Today, he's calling out the Dem nominee for inviting controversial truth streamer Hassan Piker to his rally last night. And it's like, I don't think this is, once again, I don't think this is like a bar, and he just keeps hitting it so fucking hard, and it unironically makes, which again is not going to work regardless. Because at the end of the day, at the end of the day, I am an outsider to the Democratic Party, but I also do have a fuck ton of people that work within the confines of the Democratic Party, that run for local office, that are community organizers, that are union organizers. So coming after me in this regard is not going to work, especially because many of you already know what I have said and what I've done. You are not an outsider, bro. No, I mean, I exist outside of the Democratic Party's infrastructure. This is true. I oppose the Republicans. This is what I mean, by the way. Like you're out here. We got a former disgraced governor invoking my name actively because he perceives what we do here as a fucking significant threat. So much so that he would rather try and take me out because he realizes he's not going to fucking win the election. And you're over here saying that I've actually become an op to the socialist movement at a time when in the United States of America, socialism is receiving its highest marks. Okay? Like the last time this happened, when there was like a viable left alternative, a robust socialist movement, was pre-World War I. Okay? And we do not have the organizational capacity that we did before World War I. Socialists, communists, trade unionists, labor militancy in general is virtually non-existent still at this point. I need a lot of you to just wake up to the realities instead of isolating yourselves in increasingly more limited focus echo chambers. Why not capitalize on ZOHRAN's momentum and build a new third party now? Because that's not enough, is my point. It's not there. We're not there yet. You're the one that's got to wake up, bro. Okay, man. You'll do it. I think if you think you aren't being used by the Democrats to make leftists think they have a guy representing them, I don't know what to tell you, man. Hassan defends Graham Plattner. Okay. I think your capacity to comprehend things is a little bit busted. But I think this is unproductive to consistently talk about, you know, your bad faith and uncharitable interpretations of things that I haven't even said. Okay? Yeah, Unca's gone liberal while I, the enlightened communist, have been pushing the vanguard by typing in Twitch chat and being as annoying as fucking possible. I will also say, at least in my experience, what I have seen is that time actually has the capacity, only time has the capacity to shift people's priorities and perspectives. That's it. A lot of people who have these sorts of concerns had these sorts of concerns years ago as well. It's something that I have heard time and time again. And yet, you just got to keep your head down and keep doing what you're doing. And people will eventually realize that you might have been right. And if they don't, then they don't. Yeah, Melissa De Rosa The crowd chants at Hochul, not with Hochul. Says tax the rich, tax the rich. Democrat advisor and strategist at Cornell Communications Advisory, Melissa DeRosa, says, in a crowd that includes Hassan Piker, a stadium filled with the most popular streamer on earth hates me and my cause. In any case, that is where we're at. Okay? Feels like so many people here have absolutely no idea what the American left looked like before 2016. It's like these people would rather sit on Left Book and hyperinsular Discord servers. No, they don't even know Left Book. These people came after Left Book. These people came after Bernie Sanders. You understand that, right? A lot of the people in this community started self-identifying as socialists because of Bernie Sanders. Whole country on the planet. But a lot of people post October 7, once they started realizing that Israel wasn't this beautiful island of democracy and queer liberty or whatever, surrounded by scary Muslims, and that it was actually an ethno-nationalist apartheid that was engaging in a genocide, and they learned about the history of Palestinian emancipation, some did, okay, and their attitude changed. They started taking for granted how many people were like-minded, okay? If you come from that background, if you recognize how shitty things used to be, okay? How shitty things used to be, you will realize that moving the needle in the socialist direction, no matter how incremental it may seem, is actually working just fine. It's not fast enough, but unfortunately, that's just not how change works. Okay? That's it. But that is the reason why I always keep my head down, and I hope you guys can too, and keep pushing no matter what. It's like these people would rather sit on Left Book and hyperinsular Discord servers forever because it makes them feel comfy. Saying the word socialism used to be a death sentence in American politics. I know, but a lot of people don't realize that. Like for the last, I would say for the last like 40 years, 50 years, it was not even a question. Okay? This is the country that openly flaunted the First Amendment and yet still has laws in the books that make it illegal to be a communist and organize as a communist. And many Americans don't even know that reality. They've simply heard about the Red Scare and have not looked further into it. They don't understand how reactionary this country was, how antagonistic the people of this country have been, how propagandized the people of this country have been towards socialism, Marxism, leftism of any sort. Yeah. And if you look at the Gallup polls like this, image of capitalism slips to 54% in the United States of America. Okay. Trend in Americans' positive ratings of capitalism and socialism. Capitalism is at 2010 and in 2010 is at 61% approval, down to 54% approval. But this is all Americans, by the way. Socialism at 36% approval, up to 39% approval by 2025. And you think to yourself, okay, well, that's not great. Except when you look at actually the places, the political associations that are, albeit limited, once again, we have the three brackets, the Republicans, Independents, and the Democrats, right? If you look at those three brackets, you see bigger shifts on the Democrat side. So to cast aside the people that are more likely to be your allies of this sort when it's actually working, to say, well, change, much broader change is a necessity right now. Okay. And therefore, I'm going to cast aside people that are more likely to be on your side instead of trying to talk to them and move them in a more, move them in a direction that is more open-minded to your worldview, I think that comes across as unserious. Democrats in 2010, 50% approval, 50% positive image of socialism. In 2025, it's up to 66%. Now, it's not far enough. Independents at 36%, now at 38%. Highest was at 41% in 2019. Okay? 65% in 2019 for Democrats, 60, right? In spite of the unimaginable, unlimited faucet of propaganda that declares Israel to be a objective good, a force for good in the region, Americans came to their own conclusions on Israel in spite of the mainstream media pressure, in spite of the advocacy groups pressuring people, in spite of criminal charges being brought towards those who stood strong and defended the truth, that Palestinians were worthy, Palestinian lives were worthy of dignity, and that their emancipatory movement was just. That's the reason why I say there's a major shift happening, and that's positive. It's a good thing. Left accelerationists will see any type of reform as a bad thing because they believe it makes people more complacent and comfortable and less likely to start a revolution. Some people will just always oppose what you do no matter what because they think advocating for things like universal health care is protecting capital. I know. The interesting part about this is that I understand that. As far as welfare, like as far as the Marxist tendency that looks at welfare as a lifeline for capitalism to continue, it's correct. It's not wrong. Okay? This is not incorrect. It is correct. Because in the absence of a robust welfare state, capitalism was slated to self-destruct. This is true. Having said that, you have to work within what we already have. You have to work within what is readily available, especially in a country like the United States of America that has never had as successful of a socialist movement or a tradition or a background, and that even the limited amount of success that socialists have seen here have been actively eviscerated from the American collective consciousness through a faucet of anti-socialist propaganda.
So far, more than 160,000 ballots across the 5 boroughs.
Yeah, New York City's mayoral race, surely one of the highest profile races in the country this election season. Pundits, politicians, for the president down, all trying to influence how New Yorkers vote.
And there's still 8 days to go until Election Day, so still some time to sway voters those candidates are hoping for. And still, you, New Yorkers, still have to make your voices heard. So Eyewitness News reporter Crystal Cranmore is live for us at City Hall with each of the candidates and their agendas for today. Good morning, Crystal.
Good morning. Well, it's actually expected to be a busy week ahead as the candidates work to appeal those voters who are still undecided. But those who do know actually locked in their votes just a short while ago here at the Borough of Manhattan Community College. Take a look inside. This is how it looked when polls opened around 9 o'clock this morning. This is the 3rd day of early voting. After Elections Day, there was a large turnout this weekend. Now, the candidates pulled out all the stops to secure the votes they needed. This was a rally for Assemblyman ZOHRAN Mamdani in Queens, Forest Hill Stadium in Queens last night, where about 10,000 people were in attendance. Senator Bernie Sanders and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and other key Democratic forces in New York got on stage and championed Mamdani.
That universal health care we pay for the blood of the third world that's colonized, you end this only by getting rid of capitalism, is a social chauvinist position. It unironically reminds me of Trots when I hear stuff like that. I know that people will say, how dare you? How dare you bring this up? How dare you bring up this this major division? You're actually a Stalinist if you believe this. But It does. It reminds me of like the permanent revolution rather than where you can get it and how you can do it. Okay? It's just, and I've described this position, I have described my position and my methods and what my goal is to Bad Empanada, ironically, when we had that conversation on Noah Sampson's show, where I said, this is not about pacifying a revolutionary movement in the United States of America, but instead, it's about moving the needle in the direction where, at the very least, the United States of America gets out of the way of places that have viable revolutionary movements in the global South. Because if you believe that the labor aristocracy is ultimately going to cause workers in the United States of America to say, well, I'm actually comfortable with my position now, we should continue imperial super profits as long as they're redistributed amongst the working class of Americans better, okay? That obviously is not going to be the end point, but we are much closer to scaling back on endless imperialism around the world at that stage than where we're at now. And while we have this back and forth on what must be done or what the different methods are, the American empire moves in the direction that it was going to move in regardless of our back and forth. Has this kind of sectarian infighting actually created a robust response to endless American warfare? No. It has not. Things have only gotten worse. Things have only gotten worse. That's why I always urge the rank and filers in here to make a big fuss in their own unions to ensure that they play a formative role in the anti-war movement in general. No matter what we say and do here, we are still incredibly marginal. Okay? There is perhaps a reason why many of the more radical on paper leftists are relegated to Discord servers and YouTube channels and podcasts, and they have very little influence in the ways in which the American political project moves.
Meanwhile, Republican Curtis Lewa spent Sunday visiting a Sikh temple in South Richmond Hill. He vowed to stay in the race despite growing calls for him to drop out. Now, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who is running as an independent, was with the Jewish community at the Kew Gardens Hills Library. More than 300 people attended that event. Now, Cuomo and mayoral frontrunner Mamdani have been clashing over questions about support for the Jewish community and allegations of Islamophobia introduced into the race. We talked to voters who tuned out the noise and locked in their decisions early.
Got to focus on the facts, and the fact is, to run New York City, you got to be able to run a business. And as a small business owner, it really feels necessary to have some business experience to run the city of New York.
I'm excited. I think the whole world is watching this election, and I'm a proud New York voter. I think it's an election about change, bringing in a new generation of leadership, and pushing back to give working families a chance in the city.
And the candidates are back on the campaign trail today. Zohran Mamdani is expected to meet with voters at a polling site on the Upper East Side at noon. Meanwhile, Curtis Lewa is expected to be at a rally on Staten Island.
I think the fact that the Democratic machine is not actively stamping out Andrew Cuomo's viability by consistently running the, he claims to be a Democrat, but he's working to be a spoiler, is actually unimaginably bankrupt. Like, it is so crazy that the establishment Democrats are not united behind Zohran and actively trying to cut away at the machine that Andrew Cuomo still is utilizing with his name recognition, with his experience in New York politics at the state level. The very fact that every single Democratic New York politician isn't severing that tie is yet another glaringly obvious example that they too see not just Zohran, but this movement as a serious threat. They see the success of this movement as a serious threat. They see this